My great pleasure today to introduce you to Denise Johnson, one of my students in the service learning course that I taught last fall on the Gulf Park campus entitled The Environmental Imagination in World Literature and Film. One of the big picture questions that we took up throughout the term was the relationship between human beings and the historical record of environmental devastation. We thought from theological, philosophical, and literary perspectives about the moral responsibility that human beings may have to care for the environment. The images you see here from Wall-E, a film from 2008, are one such quote-unquote text that we used to think about these big picture issues. One of the other ways that we thought about these big picture issues and we approached them in a more locally and geographically specific context was through a service learning partnership with Plastic Free Gulf Coast. So in this English 203 class, I split all of my students up into various groups, which you can see here, and they paired together to work on final group projects, all of which involved working on some mission, particular mission, or project that Plastic Free Gulf Coast had in the works. And in part, I believe, because Denise is a parent who is very concerned about the future of her children on the Gulf Coast and the future of her children in relation to this question of environmental responsibility and stewardship, she chose to work on engaging local school districts regarding plastic-free initiatives. And it's a group project, to be clear, for sure, but at the same time, Denise was really the single most standout student of the bunch, and her contributions, both in terms of the group project and in terms of her individual reflections, are really exemplary. And that's why it's my happy pleasure that she was selected as the 2019-2020 Outstanding Service Learning Student for USM. To show you a little bit more about her final project, it involved not just interviewing one representative from the cafeteria at an Ocean Springs school, but in fact it involved interviewing 3 different persons on 3 different sites in an attempt to understand how extensively are the schools, these 3 schools in particular in Ocean Springs, relying on plasticware, single-use plastics, either in terms of silverware or disposables, plastic trays, for instance, or styrofoam containers, and to really think about, based on the interviews that she conducted personally, to think about how we might begin to address this issue in a practical sense, both in terms of practical solutions at the local level and maybe policy solutions at a higher level. And as she did with all of her submitted work, Denise was very thoughtful, insightful, and really creative in the way that she approached the potential solutions to these problems. She really identified the Office of Child Nutrition as part of the Mississippi Department of Education as really the gatekeeper for what schools do on the local level with respect to reusables compared to single-use plastics or single-use styrofoam. And in her final reflection, she really articulated a path forward for the organization Plastic Free Gulf Coast in steering through some of these or around some of these barriers that might be in place culturally and from a policy standpoint with respect to our collective reliance on plastic and the threat that that poses both to our local communities, beaches, and also to the ocean. So Denise, in her final project, in her cover letter, produced exemplary work. It's also the case that Denise, as a member or a student in my English 203 class, was not required to attend the end of term community service learning showcase that I organized, but she chose to of her own accord. I actually taught 2 service learning courses last fall, and the more senior group had to present at this showcase, but the more junior group, the English 203 class, was not required to do so. Yet Denise, still of her own accord, chose to come, chose to present on the work that she had done in the community as part of her service learning project. And she also was a very conscientious listener and observee for the other presentations. And I'd like to show you here a few pictures from Denise's participation in this event, which took place last December. Here is Denise with the organizer or the leader of Citizens Climate Lobby, Bruce Northridge, who was also a guest speaker on the USM Gulf Park campus last fall. Denise, not surprisingly, attended that lecture as well. Here she is as well with our community service learning partner, Elizabeth Engelbretson, attending to a community partner presentation on plastic in the Gulf. Part of the event also featured some screenings by film students and English students on the USM Gulf Park campus. There is Denise in the lower left portion of the screen, attending part of the film screenings as well. You can actually see her child there seated to her left, and she was one of the few who brought her child or children out that day, and I think that's really representative of what her participation means to her. I was really, really impressed, deeply impressed by the thoughtfulness with which Denise approached reflecting not only on everything that she had learned throughout the semester in terms of the environmental literature and films that we looked at, and not only in relation to the service learning projects or project that she herself was involved in, but also in her non-obligatory participation in this end-of-term event. It was really remarkable for me to read Denise's reflections on how deeply she cares about the future of environmental stewardship on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, both from the perspective of her children and the future environment that they will inherit. And as well, she focused on, as someone who is graduating in the near term, she focused on her career plans after obtaining her BA at USM. She has plans to either work in psychology or social work after graduation, and she reflected beautifully, admirably, and inspiringly on how she might carry with her into the practice of either one of those professions some of the insights that she has garnered through her participation in the service learning project and the class this semester. And really, so it is for these many, many reasons, and I could go on, but I won't in the interest of time, but it is for all of these reasons that Denise has been awarded the 2019-2020 Outstanding Service Learning Student Award. So congratulations, Denise. We wish you all the best in your future